Tony Schiavone brings out Will Ospreay to a huge pap in Toronto. And he says last time he was there, he was a little bit naughty at Forbidden Door. He apologized for what he did back then. He says he was here to deliver some elite caliber wrestling, but in return, he wants some Canadian maple syrup, bruv. He put over Bryan Danielson.
Got away with it.
So over, man.
It's ridiculous.
Bruv is like, I know within 2-3 years, Bruv's going to be like, your distaste for what for me? I hate it, but it's so over. Go with it all the way. Slap it on every T-shirt you can. I never want to hear it again.
He puts over Danielson versus Shibata. Says that's what professional wrestling truly is. Just wishes it had been announced earlier so we could do it on the preview. Anyway, Ospreay brings up how he couldn't fit in Danielson's shoes when he was in Japan because they were too small, bruv. Said what you did in Japan was great, but Ospreay elevated pro wrestling. He said he won the Best of the Super Juniors twice. He won the junior title 3 times, the never open weight, the IWGP world title. He'll prove he can walk in Danielson's shoes in AEW. And he brings up Shibata saying, long time no see. Said 7 years ago, he beat the piss out of him. Now he's 30 years old. He's got 2 pugs, 3 cats, a kid, a missus, a mortgage to pay for, and a point to prove. Next week on Dynamite, he challenges Shibata and tells Danielson to sit at home and watch what a real Billy Goat is all about. Sige, I've got a question for you regarding this. Is this one of the final faults that AEW's fixed here?
Yes, absolutely. And we'll go into that imminently. I just want to talk about the Will Ospreay promo first before we get to the fact that, yes, AEW has potentially remedied the one thing that plagued it throughout the glory years, the seminal peak, the not particularly good period last year, the shadow cast over it in 2022. This Will Ospreay promo was excellent, and we are within 2 weeks of him cutting promos on national television. The caveat needs to go away. Oh, Will Ospreay. His tone. Oh, Will Ospreay. He's cutting great promos for him.
Yeah.
He's just a great promo.
Yeah.
Like, the rhythm, cadence, when to raise the voice, when to make the point, how to make the point, the killer line, how to tell the story, how to really peck at someone's psyche. He's incredible at this. It's not just, oh, Will Ospreay surprising me by how good he is. It's no longer even, Will Ospreay is surprising me by how great he is. Get rid of that tone and that caveat. He's great at this, and this was great. Like, I love that bit where the whole idea is you've got 2 alpha males who believe themselves to be the absolute very best at this, and it works because 2 of them are. Like, it's either him or Ospreay, Danielson or Ospreay, in terms of the best in the world. For me, I lean towards one. And they are having this, well, we're going to have to sort it out once and for all. And it's gone for that respectful. I obviously respect you enough to consider you the best in the world. Wouldn't it be nice? We kind of need to prove it to ourselves. It's getting a little bit spicy. It's getting a little bit nasty now, and they are, like, sequencing it and pacing it perfectly. The idea being, in order to do this, I'm going to drop you on your head, which has been broken quite a few times. Sorry, I'm not going to get killed like you are. So it's already heightened in terms of the distress and the emotion. Now it's getting a bit spicy. Will Ospreay struck upon something that people have said, but the great Danielson, who people are understandably reverent towards, they haven't really said it that often, but remember when he was in WWE, and he's like, oh, I'd love to go to CMLL and work this guy. After a while, for me, it was like, shut up. Please, you're just saying things that I think you want people to hear. And Ospreay has found the one thing that you can kind of criticize Danielson for. Oh, you want to be this great in Japan? Never went, really. You went early in your career, but where were you after that? I lived it. I did it. You didn't. Like, my feet are bigger than yours. Like, how's that a good insult? And yet it's really cutting. It's really going to nail.
And of course, the implication as well. His feet are bigger than him.
Yeah, he's got a huge cack. Yeah, indeed. One more thing on this promo. That was tremendous. So you've got these 2 alphas in a dick measuring contest.
Love this line. You tweeted this, didn't you?
Yeah. 2 alphas in a dick measuring contest, and they've been clever enough to use Shibata as the ruler. What a great idea for a subplot that is. And I've got a fantasy booking stuff. We'll save that for the preview next week, wherever you get your podcasts from. But they're doing Ospreay versus Shibata.
Oh my God.
Having just done Shibata versus Danielson.
Oh my God.
Ahead of Danielson versus Ospreay at Dynasty.
Oh my God.
Since day one, they've always wanted, and it was a clever tactic at first, the idea being, right, we're going to do, this is AEW 2019, we're going to do stable-oriented storytelling, like New Japan, Dragon Gate, Crockett, all the rest of it, how it should have been all along, basically, right? The idea being that the top star of one stable can have a match on television against an underling of their rival stable, hence why you got something like Hangman Page versus Sammy Guevara, as an example. The idea being they didn't have a rights fee in 2019. So, and they understood the art of promotion very early. Saved the big ones for pay-per-view, which was a medium thought dead. It's been a huge achievement that they've been able to generate as many buys as they have over the years. So they've thought, right, well, we have to preserve the big matches. We might not get the rights fee. We have to work towards the rights fee. We have to grow this audience with the idea being that they'll stick with us, keep watching, they'll be rewarded with the big matches. And he got about half of them. And then this just was drilled into Tony Khan's head, this fear of, well, if I give everything away, what if I've got nothing left? Michael Hamflett has got a particularly big bugbear about the certain match that he lost out on.
It's back now, though. It's back now.
But this is the point.
Yeah.
To Tony Khan's ultimate detriment, Cody Rhodes versus CM Punk is going to happen, and it's going to happen in WWE. How's that happened? Bryan Danielson still hasn't wrestled Darby Allin. Kenny Omega hasn't wrestled Darby Allin. That's my ultimate.
That is wild.
That's wild. That's, you know, this has been a problem for a long, long time. And then if you look at that history of Dynamite main events, there's some like seminal, just incomparable professional wrestling every other week or once in every 3 weeks. And yet you'll still get, that main evented that, or that main evented that, or he's main eventing, or she's main eventing that. They've kind of taken the piss and lost a lot of great matches. But now you're getting Ospreay versus Danielson at Dynasty. You're getting these great subplots building towards that match at Dynasty. All In already feels massive, and we don't know the matches yet. This increased pay-per-view schedule, which they didn't want to do at first because they wanted to create these huge, huge destination events, which I get the theory behind. I'll let Hamflett talk imminently, I'm sorry, is that as much as that was a great idea, one pay-per-view every 3 months, how massive is this going to feel? And it did.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the time, what you had was a two-pronged problem there in that everyone remembers there's like 2 or 3 weeks where nothing's happening on Dynamite. There's table setting and there's RC in 3 or 4 weeks or whatever. I mean, I was a mark and I loved it all, but I could understand the complaints during peak AEW of, there's nothing happening for these few weeks. And then, because you didn't do the big matches, injuries happened. At the time, it felt impossible. Ellis Island era AEW, people started to leave or retire or whatever. Now, because you've got this increased pay-per-view schedule, which I never thought in a million years would be a good idea. I thought it would be gross content farm stuff. It's actually solved the big problem and the second problem of these gaps between pay-per-views or the TV's just kind of there. Good, but not that important. And now you can't not do the big matches more than you did before because you've got more pay-per-views to sell. It's so weird that the solution to AEW's big problem is WWE's big mistake, big content farm stuff, but they're so far completely nailing it.
I just think it's, like, to use Ospreay's promo as an example, sort of thread these two thoughts together, it's so much easier to talk the talk when about every other week you're given the opportunity to walk the walk. Like Will Ospreay in the old model might inadvertently go a month and a half without that big Will Ospreay match. So the promos just might not resonate as much because there's all this history of what he's done. But wrestling's about what have you done for me lately? Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, it's ultimately it's one of them paranoid thoughts that keeps wrestlers going the way they do in such an unrelenting and difficult industry, is that they know that, like, fans can be fickle and fans can move on, and the hot new thing is only ever one promo away, basically. Mercedes Moné very, very soon is going to have to, it's probably going to be Dynasty to get people to buy her first match, but very quickly these matches will need to come around for her because there's only so many promos of being told you're the boss, you're the best, the CEO, all that sort of stuff before you need to back it up in the ring. I have no doubt she will, but that's why it's just as important that the matches are forthcoming. And I think, like, to use, obviously, you know, Punk and Cody, as Sid said, Punk for me was doing a great job at times, making you feel like you absolutely need to see him versus insert rank and file wrestler here. That was the genius of a Punk promo. It was like, oh, he's just called out whoever. And I still desperately want to see Punk versus whoever because he's talked it up. And then finally the MJF match would come around or finally whatever. Ospreay isn't having to do that. Ospreay is getting yet another dream match to talk. There are going to come a point where his job is in these promos is going to be to say, right, now sell me on you versus, like, I don't want to like neg a mid-carder here, but you know the type of wrestling I'm talking about where it's
Butcher,
like,
who just showed up.
a perfect example, right? Now sell me on you versus the Butcher. You've got a little bit of history from all these dream matches, but what have you got here? I think he'll do it, by the way. I'm with Sidge. I'm like, Ospreay's in. He's locked in as a weekly TV regular. It's almost as if him not doing it has had him sitting there ready and raring to go, and he's just off to the races. But it's so much more beneficial when you've got all these wrestlers with which to do the dream matches and just keep them coming. Like the Shibata one. It's an inspired thing to have basically in a clash of eras dream match between Will Ospreay and Bryan Danielson. It's just because it's front of mind because me and Sid have been talking about a lot lately. You're basically running an idea you did with Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels. You did that. Well, I'm going to do it better then. Like the Shibata of that day was Marty Jannetty, weirdly enough, but like Marty Jannetty was back.
One of them's got a brain in the head and the other one doesn't.
Marty Jannetty was back on Raw and Angle's like, right, well, I'm going to have to kick his ass in because you did that, you know. But it's the same principle.
Yeah.
It's an absolute dream match between two of the best of all time.
And it's Marty Jannetty who doesn't have the brain, just to be absolutely
clear. And speaking of guys that don't have brain, like this is a man who had his brain taken out and put in a dishwasher, then put back in his head.
That was the joke.
And Will Ospreay wants to do a Tiger Driver 91 on that head. Like, oh my God.
That was the preview spot I was going to talk about.
Oh, sorry.
Never mind. One more thing, very quickly on this. I wrote an article last year called The Disturbing Truth Behind Wrestling Fan Tribalism. And my idea was, the irony is that if you fused the sensibilities of Tony Khan and Paul Levesque, you'd have like one really good booker with flair on one side and just steadfast focus, profile, focus, build, promotion, like position that guy as a top star versus Khan's energy, flair, verve, detail, imagination. You'd have one really good booker. And now, with the Ospreay, Monet, you get your big matches, and I'm not taking the piss anymore. I think Tony Khan might have borrowed a little bit from Triple H over the past 18 months. Truly, I do.